21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Hi, I'm Mike. I have previous experience as a Deloitte consultant, traveling sunglasses salesman, startup CEO, incubator program director, and adjunct professor. And I'm passionate about being a relentlessly generous and enthusiastically fun force for good in the world, helping entrepreneurs buy back their freedom and time, focus on what matters most, both professionally and personally. But to be vulnerable with you for a minute, yesterday was my mom's birthday, and my mom passed away 3 years ago. And when we lost her, it was a big shock. And that same week, we found out my wife was pregnant with our first son, who is now our chief cuteness officer here at Malloy Industries. And I realized during that time off and reflection that I couldn't be the change I wanted to be in the world if everything was dependent on me. And so I found myself at the forefront of the future of work after this great resignation and quiet quitting era. And at this point, I'm all in. The future of work is fractional. Therefore, I'm the CEO at Malloy Industries, which creates more time and freedom for CEOs by giving their undesirable hats to vetted fractional executives. CEOs who want to scale their B2B sales from 1 to 2 million to 10 to 20 million in annual revenue benefit the most from the Malloy match with a trustworthy fractional sales executive. You may be wondering, what is a fractional executive? Fractional executive is a part-time, fully embedded leader at a growth stage company. The only difference between fractional and full-time is that they work on a part-time basis. They're a seasoned professional with 10, 20, 30 years of experience who can provide guidance and expertise to businesses without needing to commit to a full-time salary, typically in the six-figure range, the benefits and all the overhead of a full-time employee. There's a lot more flexibility that comes with a fractional executive. So you're getting their expertise as much as needed and not paying for all of the other time as you look to grow and scale your business with people who are way smarter than you. As an entrepreneur, you're probably familiar with being stuck in the day-to-day weeds, wearing too many hats. You're dealing with problems outside of your areas of expertise, which means you don't have the time or energy to work on the business. And depending on your growth stage, how much funding you've raised, and how much annual revenue you've got, you may not have the budget available yet for a full-time executive hire in each department of the business. And a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with have to go focus elsewhere, aka fundraising and doing the dog and pony show with investors for 3 months, which turns into 9 months, which means they don't have the time, attention, money, energy, or effort to focus on sales and actually creating that up and to the right graph that you need to show investors about your revenue. So one of our biggest sweet spots is bringing in fractional sales executives to help entrepreneurs take off that sales leader hat as they go put on the fundraising hat, and have somebody with decades of experience running, growing, and scaling sales organizations taken over at the helm for their company, so they can go raise capital and grow the company while knowing that the top line and hopefully bottom line revenue are also growing at the same time. Another thing that I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is that they face a problem that they've never faced before. And that happens maybe on a weekly, if not a monthly basis. And they look around their team and everybody on the bus with them, and they don't have anybody on the bus who knows how to solve this problem. Well, what are they going to do? You want to write a position description and like post it on LinkedIn and share with a bunch of people and then get a bunch of candidates that you have to vet and then interview and then ultimately hire, onboard, and train, and maybe 3 to 6 months later, they're helping solve it? Or do you want to pick up the phone and call Malloy Industries and say, hey, we need somebody to solve this problem. Can they start in 2 weeks? Yeah, they can. That's how we've built our business, is to be able to respond with the speed and intensity that entrepreneurs need. Because you've got a hair on fire problem, it's not going to wait for 6 months to go out. It's going to keep burning your until you find somebody else who knows how to solve that problem, can come in where you're not training and onboarding fractional executive. They're actually coming in and training you and your team how to better operate that part of your business. If your business is a plane, you've got a marketing engine and a sales engine. Maybe you've got HR as the flight attendants, and you're in the cockpit. You need people working throughout the plane, making sure it's running as effectively and efficiently as you can. And when there's a fire in the sales engine, you need somebody rapidly able to address that so you don't burn fuel, burn your runway, burn your client roster because they're having bad experiences. You want to be able to quickly tap into the expertise and capacity to solve those problems on a kind of month-to-month basis. And one of the reasons I love working with fractional executives is because you can ramp it up or down on a month-to-month basis. You're not committing to 40 plus hours a week every week for the next 52 weeks. Let's say you're committing to 40% capacity for month one. All right. They're going to come in, you're going to get about 2 days of their time. We're not lawyers, billing in 6-minute increments. Fractional executives, we're grown-ups. We've been around the block. We know how to solve the problem, and we know what the results are that you need, whether that's certain sales figures, that's a certain number of marketing qualified leads, perhaps that's a new employee handbook or a hiring plan or payroll compensation assessments if it's somebody on the HR side. We're able to come in and make sure you get the results you need in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost. So as we're talking about fractional executives, you may be a little bit concerned about how do you know that they're going to be a quality fractional executive, that they've got the skills and the expertise, and that they're going to be able to deliver the results we need at our company. Well, one of the things we do at Malloy Industries is a thorough vetting process on the front end before any fractional executive is accepted into our roster. And just to share with you, this started over 3 years ago with my close personal network. These are people I had worked with over the 15 plus years of my career. It has now grown to where we have about 300 fractional executives across all business functions. We specialize in B2B SaaS, helping them with sales and kind of scaling that revenue engine. But when we started out, it was all fractional executives, and we've seen that this model can work very, very well in each part of the business. So as we do the vetting, the first stage of the Malloy match is that you'll meet with me, Mike Malloy, the CEO at Malloy Industries, to scope out what it is that you need help with. We'll go through a deep 45-minute assessment on the scalability of your business, identifying what are the problems or obstacles, like what's the most expensive pain point or problem that you're dealing with, what's the end in mind, if we're sitting down 6 months from now having a drink, celebrating how great it's been working together, what are we celebrating? What's that transformation? And I think it's really, really important for both of us to know on the front end, how are we going to measure success before, during, and after? Like, how do you know you're not where you want to be now? How are we going to know after month one we're heading in the right direction? And it may not be top line revenue. If your sales cycle is 3 to 6 months, it'll take a little while for that to flow through. But is it, number of leads? Is it the conversion rate? Is it we've completed a thorough assessment in that first month and identified all of the holes in the sales funnel, the friction, the things that need to be addressed. And then it's a matter of prioritizing and kind of tactically resolving them. And after we have the metrics, we also want to understand who else is involved and impacted by this situation. It's not just the CEO. Like, who else is in those departments? Do you have a mid-level or a junior person working on them? Is there somebody else at a C-level? We're fractional executives, but we don't have an ego. We don't really care what the title is. We'll come in, make sure we fit nicely in the org chart, and ideally support and lift up everybody that's on your team. We're not the ego, MVP all-star who needs all the attention. I like to position myself as like the bass player singing backup vocals who make sure everybody's amp is plugged in and things are going well. And, we've got the tour bus stocked with snacks and things for after the show. We want to support you in your leadership journey and bring to bear all of the playbooks and templates and methodologies that you don't have right now, and kind of bringing in that expertise, again, that we vetted, but more importantly, after we scope out what you need, just wait for step 2 in the Malloy match. In step 2, what we're going to do is introduce you to 3 of these vetted fractional executives. Now, I'll guarantee you that all 3 of them could do the work, but I can't guarantee you that all 3 of them are going to be a good culture fit for your organization. And so a lot of this interviewing process for entrepreneurs is understanding the personality, the communication style of the experts that we have to figure out who's actually going to be the best. And there are different interpersonal communication preferences and nuances that are really, really important for building a successful team, especially that's remote. All of our fractional executives are remote. We're not, I started my career as a Deloitte consultant, get on a plane Monday morning, flying somewhere for 4 days, flying back Thursday night. Like you can get 20 to 60% capacity of somebody paying for zero travel, zero meals, zero benefits. You're just paying for what you need on that monthly basis. And we're able to get the work done, communicate efficiently, asynchronously. And I'll talk in a minute too about the end of week report, which I think has been a big game changer for communication and de-risking some of those issues about quality and, the meatloaf, like what are they doing back there? If you don't know, that's going to cause some issues and concerns. I'll share how we've addressed those. And so after step 2 of the Malloy match, we move on to the selection process with me. So we'll reconvene typically 7 to 10 days after that first meeting. You've had a chance to interview the candidates, and we'll talk about who's your favorite. Who sounds like the best possible fit. And once we have a person identified, we're going to also finalize the scope, timeline, and budget. And these are things we will have talked about in the first meeting. You will have talked about with each of the candidates. And we're pretty clear and transparent throughout the whole process. We want you to be successful. And we want to make sure that all 3 of us know what is the work to be done, how are we going to measure success, what's the timeline, when do you want to get started, when do you want to get finished, and in many cases, there is no end date. In some cases, there's hey, this is a 6-month thing, and we know after that we're going to be done, or hey, we're going to hire somebody full-time in 6 months when we finish fundraising. Great, we're really good at plugging those holes in the ship while you're waiting to get the capital. And fractional executives in general are very nimble and malleable, where they can adapt to the culture, to the organization, using different technology tools. Internally, we do a lot of Slack and Notion and a Google suite of all sorts of things, and Airtable. But we're open to kind of the whole breadth of things. In a former life, I got my master's in computer science before I quit my Deloitte job to go sell sunglasses at the beach, but that's a different story. And so as we're talking about consultants who, might fly to a client site Monday through Thursday, I got to ask the question, what noise does a 747 make when it bounces? Boeing, Boeing, Boeing. There you go. You got to sprinkle the jokes in. If we're not having fun at work, it's not worth doing. And that's another one of our core values, is being enthusiastically fun, where, as an entrepreneur, when you see a meeting with your fractional executive on the calendar, that's going to light you up. That should be energizing for you, because you're going to get an update on what they've been doing to build that part of your business. And in a former life, you were spending 6, 8, 12 hours a week, heads down, trying to solve really complex things in an area that is not your zone of genius, not your strength zone. Now you're spending an hour a week with a fractional executive who's tackling those challenges, bringing updates to you, bringing specific decisions to be made in the room, making sure you've got the information as well as their recommendation. Ultimately, you're the entrepreneur, you're the leader. You get to decide which direction we're going. And having a fractional executive who's an expert to give you all the information is a lot different than having a mid-level manager or a junior analyst that you say, hey, go research this thing and tell me what to do. And they're just going to put some stuff in ChatGPT and spit out whatever that or Google said. Communication is the most important thing in the relationship between an entrepreneur and a fractional executive. From over 3 years of matching executives with entrepreneurs, we've developed the end of week report the Malloy way. It's a standard report you'll get every Friday that says, what did I do this week? Let's recap all the meetings I had, both internal and external. What did we accomplish? What's on the agenda for next week? What are your priorities in the upcoming meetings? As well as, where am I stuck? What do I need help from you as an entrepreneur to unstick me? And what are any upcoming scheduling constraints? Do I have a vacation planned or another conference to go to for a different client? Getting this information delivered on a Friday afternoon, week after week, means that there isn't any second guessing what's going on, or what do they do this week, or what are they doing next week? How's the time being spent? What are the results? It's clearly communicated to both the client and our internal team, because we also do monthly check-ins with each fractional executive on how's it going, and with each client on, hey, what should we start doing, stop doing, do more of, do less of. And as the CEO, I do quarterly strategic business reviews with every client to talk about where we've been, and more importantly, focus on where you want to go and how can we best support you in achieving those quarterly and annual goals. as you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to ask you to take a second and just reflect on what's your most expensive problem right now? What's the thing that's stressing you out that you know you need to solve within the next few months, if not few weeks? Uh, and start to think about who, not how. What if you flip that switch for the problems you need to solve? It's not how am I going to do it, it's who's going to solve it for me. It's a very powerful mental shift, which I learned from Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. And when you start to think about who, not how, then you start to look around at the who's you have and who's already on the team and already on the plane with you that can solve the things that are coming up. As you look at your calendar and your to-do list and the things that are stressing you out, who, not how, can solve them. And in order to effectively give it to a who, you have to know how to effectively delegate. And let me tell you something, you brute force running through walls all day, every day is a surefire way to get burned out. I've been through it multiple times myself. When you're stressed and overwhelmed, you can't go to the productivity zone without going to the rest and recovery zone. And you can only rest if you feel confident and comfortable that somebody else is dealing with some of those things that are on fire. And so a couple quick principles for you to think about with delegation. One is the 10-80-10 rule, and it's that you should be there for the first 10% to give a definition of done. What does success look like? How do you know when this is done? And it's not necessarily like, oh, I email you the report. No, it's like, I looked at all the data, I analyzed it, we put it in a report, it has these 3 graphs, you send it to me and the other executive stakeholders, you scheduled a meeting such that we'll all be there to discuss it, and in it there's a problem that we have to solve, and you come up with 3 options, details about the options, and you've recommended option B. And that's a thorough definition of done, just one example. But as you think about what the definition of done is, what's the end zone, the goal line you're working towards, and that you want this other person to solve this problem, you also need to explain why. Why? Why does this matter to you? Why does this matter to the company? Why should this matter for the person doing it? Why does it matter to the other people who are impacted by it? People are significantly driven by this intrinsic motivation of understanding why. It's a great personality assessment by Gretchen Rubin, the 4 tendencies. It says, 57% of people are obligers, and they, want to oblige and help other people when they know why that person needs help with something. And so by communicating that as the visionary leader in the first 10%, you then get out of the way. Give the person the ball, let them run with it for 80% down the field. You would have zigged, they're going to zag. Great. That's what's going to happen. Expect it. Don't expect them to do it the same way you would have, because 80% done by somebody else is 100% freaking awesome. That's how you buy back your freedom and time. And you're not saying, hey, go run it 90% and finish it without me. You're saying, get it to the 10-yard line, and then I'm going to come back in. Well, let's review it together. All right, let's talk about what you did. I'm definitely going to tweak the formatting, the layout, the colors, or something. Let's wordsmith a little bit. But instead of you staring at a blank Google Doc, having to write out the whole thing, whatever it was, you're just coming in and tweaking, making little changes here and there. And if you're smart about it and you get good at how to give this feedback, you don't have to give the same feedback over and over and over again. You give it once, and people understand, oh, we start our emails, hi, Martin, not dear Martin. Little things like that are then become part of the company culture. You can document them as well. And so it scales. So that's the 10-80-10 rule. The other rule that I want to give you for delegation is called do and document. And I'll share a link in the show notes to a short little clip explaining how we use Loom, which records short videos, and Scribe, which spits out line-by-line SOPs with screenshots of everything that was clicked on and done. And so the next time you need to do a process and you're like, I don't want to do this process anymore. You have the 2 plugins in Chrome, you push record, do the process, talk through it, explain the why, explain what you're doing out loud. So there's color commentary in the Loom. And the Scribe is going to capture everything you clicked on. And different people on your team and different people you haven't even met yet that are going to do this process 2 years from now have different learning styles. So why not create a video and an audio and a picture version of it? So whatever their preferred style is, they can learn it the first time. And then the 4th time they're doing it, and they're like, what was step 16? They just go back and look at the picture. Oh, I got to do that thing. Okay, great. And what you're doing is in real time building an SOP library of how to do all the things you don't want to do anymore. And guess what? It's not just you as the entrepreneur doing document. This is a cultural shift across the organization, my friend. This is how you get to take vacation. It's how everybody on the team gets to take vacation, because you can cross-train your organization, including training people off the street that you haven't even hired yet, to do the different roles so people can go enjoy a week at the beach with their family and not be stressed out with emails while their kids are jumping waves. That's what we're working towards, is the ability to build successful, scalable, impactful businesses and then unplug. Just take some time off, go find the sun, do what matters most to you so that you can come back energized to keep going. And one of the best ways to be able to unplug is by having the right who's that already know the hows. And that's where fractional executives come in. I've dedicated my career to helping entrepreneurs and guiding them along their journey. I know firsthand what it's like to be on that bicycle pedaling up the hill, brow covered in sweat. I'm grateful to now be at a stage in my career where I'm actually kind of cruising down the hill in a Tesla that's driving itself, but I'm able to give advice and guidance out the window to these entrepreneurs that are building and growing companies. And more importantly, I get to spend about a third of my time teaching social entrepreneurship in a startup internship seminar course at Georgetown University, helping the next generation of social entrepreneurs learn how they can build impact into the DNA of their businesses, and also learn how they can be a valuable addition as the 5th, 25th, or 100th employee at a startup. Not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur and build an amazing, impactful business, but learning how to wear multiple hats and juggle priorities, communicate effectively with emotional intelligence, having a intermediate understanding of sales, marketing, presentations, networking, how to build relationships, create long-lasting connections, and ultimately add value to the causes and communities that matter most. That's why we do what we do. I've built this whole business around my love of education, of supporting entrepreneurs, and ultimately of helping our 2.5-year-old chief cuteness officer make his way to college in 15 years. That's my why. Everything I do, I have a little note card here on my desk that says, is this decision going to help me spend more time with my wife and son before he starts kindergarten? That's my North Star question. Like, how are you looking at all of the decisions that are coming your way to filter, is it a yes or a no? What are you optimizing for, trying to get closer to? And in many cases, it's not trying to get closer to 80, 100-hour weeks. And it's not even trying to get closer to 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, whatever the number is. There's always a bigger boat. There's always somebody who's doing more. Like, the race is long, and in the end, it's only with yourself. And the race is so much more enjoyable when you're surrounded with people you care about and who care about you. And that's what we try to do here at Malloy Industries. We built this community of givers, people who are relentlessly generous, we're independently productive, and we want to help businesses and business leaders grow professionally and personally so that they can do what matters most to them while creating a supportive, nurturing community that knows it's not just a perfect up and to the right journey. It's a squiggly line up and down all over the place, and you need some people there who will support you in those dips, because inevitably there's always dips along this roller coaster ride. If you want to learn more about fractional executives, visit malloyindustries.com/pod. That's MALLOYINDUSTRIES.com/pod, POD for podcast. You can hear about our sales scalability scorecard. It's a tool that we use to help businesses assess where they are and where they want to go, and figuring out what's blocking them along the way. Would love to stay in touch. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Mike Malloy with a little sunglass emoji. I mentioned I had a sunglass company for 6 years, so and I live about a half mile from the beach here in Delaware. So again, want to support you along your journeys. We've got some great resources on our website, and I really appreciate your time. And I'll end by, just mentioning the fact that there was actually this octopus that recently robbed a bank. He didn't have a gun, but he was well armed.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskorik, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.